How many have heard this saying, comparison is the thief of joy, that comparing and contrasting and debating lead to nothing. Trying to figure out and discuss what is better and or the best of something do not lead to any conclusion. So therefore, you should just enjoy it for what it is, and just leave debating, discussions, or comparisons alone. But even so, there are people who still continuously debate no matter what the subject is, whether it be about sports, video games, movies, or other forms of entertainment. From the past generations onto the next generations, no matter the analysis or criteria or subject matter, people will always find a way to debate what is better. And obviously today's subject is about anime and manga. Why do people debate about what series or what stories or characters or even moments are better than the other? Disclaimer as always, this is not me hating on anyone that prefers not to debate or tell you why you should debate or argue your points on what you think is better. This is mainly a discussion or analysis on why people do argue and tend to debate about what is better. If you like videos like this, please be sure to like and share your feelings below whether you agree or disagree, as well as follow me on other social media links and subscribing to the channel. And so without further ado, let's dive into it. So what is the true importance? Why do people debate about anime and manga? Now most people know this without a doubt, that primarily everything is subjective. Whatever you think is good, great, amazing, or even a masterpiece, or even downright trash or terrible, it is completely up to your own subjective viewpoint and beliefs to what criteria you use to determine what is good or bad. For a very good example, if I were to say that I like Jujutsu Kaisen a little bit more than OG Naruto, there would be a response from people to understand my reasoning, my criteria, and opinions onto why I think this way, and depending on that, people would have a response, whether it be good or bad. I also wouldn't mind hearing different opinions and reasonings to whether you agree with me or whether you disagree with me. This is what's missing in a lot of debates and arguments nowadays. The honesty to accommodate, respect, and even admit if your opinion is wrong or just respect someone else's different opinion. Nowadays, a lot of people would rather just be right at the moment than rather be right in the long run. To those who didn't understand what I meant by that comment is to say that people would rather be biased and reluctant to hear a different opinion, which is why most people consider debating to honestly be for nothing. However, that is not how all debates and arguments are. There are healthier and more productive ways to have a much more better sounded argument to have a better understanding, while also having a much more better well-rounded analysis on the point that you're trying to state. As you've seen me state from why I am not an anime troll video, a lot of people would rather say something very trendy to get a lot of attention, which then can lead to a very much oversimplified notion to that entertainment or that media. But that's obviously not how most see it. Nowadays, a lot of people are just wanting to keep up an ego, and certain followers of those people would rather just continuously hear what they believe is right. I do believe that not everything should be overanalyzed, and just as much as something should not be oversimplified, which is why I say in these kinds of discussions that dialogue and comparing and contrasting is very important. To truly understand where someone is coming from and their own personal reasons to why they prefer a series or prefer things over the other. In my honest opinion, this is why anime and manga debates do matter, because it truly is a fun and great thing to experience. Hearing and seeing a lot of people's different reasons and personal opinions on why they prefer something over the other can also enlighten your own ideas. To me, it makes you really respect and love and admire the genre even more. But my main thing about why dialogue is important, when it is not presented correctly or very much misinterpreted or definitely missing context, a lot of people will consider debating to be very, very toxic. And I'm going to bring up some of these criticisms and points so that more people have a much more well-rounded understanding of what the others are trying to say, as well as clearing up some notions and statements about anime and manga that is very much not true. Alright, let's begin with a fair few of them. On the topic of unoriginality, usually this notion means that a story or a character or even themes or tropes cannot be considered great because it has been done before. I've seen a fair few statements of people saying that Naruto is just a copycat version of Hunter x Hunter, Jujutsu Kaisen or Black Clover copycat Naruto, or another popular one of how Bleach is a copycat of Yu Yu Hakusho. The main point that I'm trying to draw here is that every form of entertainment has at least some form of inspiration behind it. One of the best mangakas of all time in my opinion, Urasawa Naoki, creator of 20th Century Boys and Monster, also created created another pretty well written story called Billy Bat. In this part of the story, the main character, who is a comic book artist, tells an experienced comic book artist that he feels guilty because he feels like he's copied his work. The comic book artist is not frustrated, instead he actually gives him a lesson, as he tells him that the human race is evolving, not just in technology and everything else, but in art specifically. The artist ends up drawing a cup and asks him, how did we learn this? The other artist responds by saying we must have copied it from somebody else. Then the comic book artist says, who was that? Then where did that person learn it from? As the young comic book artist seems to be very confused, he then states this: at any rate, something was drawn on a stone wall. That's the point. The point I believe Urasawa was trying to get us, the readers, to understand is that every form of fiction has inspiration, as well as every other form of media. And just because it takes inspiration, that does not mean that it's not any less stellar of being unoriginal in its own form. As I used for an example with Jujutsu Kaisen and Naruto, that there are certain implications and influences from Naruto. And not just from Naruto, I would even argue that it has inspirations from Bleach, Blue Exorcist, and even Hunter x Hunter. And they have had inspirations from some of their own predecessors as well. And just like the previous ones, they have had their own inspiration and influences themselves. Whether it be from folklore, storytellers, authors, mangakas, editors, each deserve their own essence and praise of respect for continuing the cycle and expanding the amount of creativity within stories. But that is not all. I'm about to go more into some nitpicks that I always hear about comparing anime back and forth, but this is one that I definitely roll my eyes over. When I see people say, oh, it's really not that good because it was carried by animation. Now I get where they're coming from. Maybe the story, the characters, or themes just really didn't resonate with them and they just feel like the animation was the best part of everything. Maybe they don't value the story the way others value the story, but to say that it's carried by animation is pretty ridiculous. Because in all honesty, we can say this about every single anime that has existed, and or is in the works and has already been remade. But this is pretty much a catalyst into stemming over to the next criticism of calling something overrated and even underrated. Now, a lot of people I know are pretty much tired of hearing those same words about pretty much every form of entertainment. Definitely using it in sports, movies, video games, the term overrated. Obviously, I believe a lot of people know the definition by now, but if not, the term overrated basically means that an opinion is rated too highly. Or if it's underrated, then that means the opinion is weighed very low or is not getting enough recognition. If you ask me, I personally don't think there is a problem calling a series or calling anything overrated or even underrated. But I totally understand why it is annoying for some people, because it just seems like it's a tool to put down something than just uplift something else, or cite things that you did enjoy or that you think others would enjoy about the series. For another example, I am not the hugest fan of Demon Slayer. I would even say that I think it is overrated. But that does not mean that I cannot highlight the great things and good things that I did enjoy about the series and why it would be fitting for other people, which I see a lot of people not choosing to do when calling something overrated. They would rather undervalue some things that were good in that piece of fiction or media, and the same can be said for people who consider something underrated. And it is usually a lot to deal with what is mainstream and what is not. If I were to say stories like Ergo Proxy, Bungo Stray Dogs, Psycho-Pass are considerably underrated to stories like One Piece, Assassination's Classroom, and even JoJo's, good majority of people would rather lean more towards the side that is underrated, because sometimes the notion is that mainstream equals bad, yet you could value and appreciate the stories for what they do, and you can rank them to your own subjective values to what you deem is good quality. That pretty much ends it here with this video. Remember, comparing and contrasting and debating what you think is better is not a bad thing, but always remember, everything is subjective and everybody has their own opinions. And if somebody disagrees with your opinion, well, just try to help them understand where you're coming from and respect their analysis or criteria as well to what they think is good or bad. As always, please like, share, comment below whether you agree or whether you disagree. And if you like to keep up with me, please follow me on other social media links. And if you like to keep up with more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. And as always, I'll see you around.